President Trump warning Iran to fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or the U.S. will obliterate Iran's power plants, giving them 48 hours before strikes would start. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv with more. Trey.
Yeah, hey, Peter, good morning. As Operation Epic Fury continues into week 4, President Trump is issuing a new warning to the Iranian regime. Overnight, he took to Truth Social to say, quote, if Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The president talking about this critical waterway that has been frozen as a result of Iranian threats against shipping vessels. Today, I asked Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about the president's statement.
Overnight, President Trump said that if in 48 hours the Iranians don't open the Strait of Hormuz, that there will be strikes against the power grids in Iran. Will you participate in those strikes, and what do you think should happen next in this campaign?
I think President Trump knows exactly what he's doing, and whatever we do together, and as far as possible in confidence.
The Prime Minister also talked about the growing Iranian missile threat. Over the weekend, we saw 2 missiles trying to target the Diego Garcia base in the Indian Ocean. This is more than 2,000 miles away from Iranian territory, and an indication that the Iranians were not being transparent when it comes to their medium-range ballistic missiles. And this is significant because, as the Prime Minister told me, it means that Europe is now under threat as a result of this Iranian missile program. Now, the IDF, you can see in this video here, over the weekend is going after many of the storage facilities for Iran's ballistic missiles. They've also taken out a number of the country's launchers. The former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, describing what exactly the current Iranian missile threat looks like.
It's important that Europe now wakes up, understands that America and Israel, with the leadership of President Trump, are preventing a nuclear Iranian nightmare on all of Europe. We're fighting this war to protect them. Now the lie has been revealed. Iran has missiles that can reach Madrid, that can reach Berlin, that can reach Paris. And now they suddenly woke up and understand that they're under an Iranian threat.
At the location where we interviewed Bennett and Netanyahu, more than 100 people were wounded last night by a single Iranian ballistic missile when it exploded in a residential area. Peter?
Great reporting as always. Thank you, Trey. Let's bring in now the former commanding officer of the USS Cole, Kirk Lippold. Kirk, somehow with whatever's left of Iran's military, they have fired for the first time these 2 IRBMs. We've got a map that we're going to put up. Intermediate range ballistic missiles. Iran missed. They were aiming at the U.S.-UK base in the Indian Ocean, Diego Garcia. But if they aim the other way, the left of this map, those IRBMs bring into their range Rome, Munich, Paris, London, Berlin, Oslo, and Moscow. How big of a problem is this?
It's a very big problem, Peter. When you look at it, what everyone has claimed, we had no imminent threat prior to this going. Number one, it proves the Iranians have been lying about their ballistic missile program the entire time. Number two, now the Europeans, with the largest land war since World War II going on with Ukraine and Russia, is now under threat from Iran as well. It is an active threat. We are in engaged conflict with Iran today, and Europeans better now realize that when President Trump asks for their help, it's not just for us, it's for them as well.
And to your point there about the allies, if Iran has shown in the last 3 weeks that they will shoot missiles at their pals in the Gulf, what is stopping them from trying to hit Paris?
Absolutely nothing. And that's where the danger lies. Iran, as we continue to degrade their capability, as we continue to execute this military plan where we are gracefully degrading their capability to project power out from Iran, out into the Strait of Hormuz, we now need to be sure that we can also go after these intermediate range ballistic missiles because they do represent a threat. And ultimately, Europe is going to have to get on board and join us to make sure that we can take Iran out, have a change of government, and allow the people to begin to build their future.
Are you surprised that after 3+ weeks of epic fury, big bombs going off all over Iran, their Army, Air Force, and Navies all decimated, that they can still blast off these intermediate range ballistic missiles that could go thousands of miles, hit some European capital?
Peter, Iran's a big country. And they had a very dispersed military, just like we do around our country. And the fact is, they still have remnants that have capability. They're going to exercise that capability. And as the regime begins to degrade even further, when they sense they are actually going to lose power, what they're going to do is lash out in unpredictable ways. If you have an intermediate range ballistic missile, what's to say that they can't plant something on that would be a true war changer on the continent of Europe? Because they're going to view Europe as aiding the United States, and they're going to begin to lash out in ways that are desperate to try and preserve their power.
We know commanders-in-chief don't like to be surprised. President Trump told us about his big surprise this week with Epic Fury. You were talking about Iran a couple times today and what they did after Epic Fury began. You said they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. Are you surprised that nobody briefed you ahead of time that that might be their retaliation?
Nobody, no. The greatest experts, nobody thought they were going to hit.
Are you surprised to hear that?
I'm actually not. I think that at the end of the day, you can brief all you want, but the reality is once conflict started, it becomes predictable. What you try to do as a military is you want to be able to predict as well as possible what the reaction of the enemy is going to be when you engage them, but they are always going to try something or do something different than you anticipate. Part of the reason you go through the practice and the drills you do in the military is so that you can react in ways that are unexpected, so that you can at first, you try to deter them, and then you want to degrade their capability to do it, and then you want to eliminate it. And that's exactly what Secretary of War Hegseth and the president have done with Iran.
These Iranian generals, the third string, whoever's left, they're kind of threatening an eye for an eye now. The Iranian military says to U.S. officials, from now on, based on the information we have about you, even parks, recreational areas, and tourist destinations anywhere in the world will no longer be safe for you. Do you see that as a real threat if the Iranian regime has been so hollowed out already?
Even with the threat that it may appear hollow, you have to take them at their word. What they're demonstrating yet again is that they have no respect for international law. The rules-based world order never existed in their eyes. They do not care if it violates Geneva Convention. What they're going to do is they're going to lash out in any way they see possible. I mean, they're willing to execute 19-year-old wrestlers for participating in protests. They are ruthless, they will kill, and they have no moral or ethical compass whatsoever. And they will continue to do that. That's why this regime needs to be taken out and ultimately destroyed. We've spent 47 years, that the senator previously just mentioned, trying to deal with this regime, and it finally took the moral courage of President Trump to say, enough, we're drawing the line. Hundreds of Americans dead, thousands maimed and injured. It is time to hold this Iranian regime accountable for what they've done.
Kirk Lippold, you have a new book out. What's it called?
It's not old, but yes, Front Burner, Al-Qaeda's attack on the USS Cole, that really details what a crew of heroes I had on the morning of October 12, 2000.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Peter.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.